Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Tennessee Titans used the number 1 overall pick on Cam Ward, but you'd never know it. Also, will Matthew Stafford be ready to play by week 1? And if the Bengals want to get off to a better start this year, they have to play Joe Burrow in the preseason.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
You wouldn't know it by listening to the national media. Maybe you forgot. It happened months ago. The Tennessee Titans had the number 1 overall pick. His name is Cam Ward. He played quarterback, and he played at a prestige college program. Maybe you have not heard anything about him lately because if you are like me, you consume national NFL media, and they haven't said a word about Cam Ward all offseason. So I thought, in the spirit of fairness, our pal Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans should join us. Tyler, catch us up. What are fans missing here? Because this is a player that I know the Titans, for their part, are very excited about.
Yeah, and that excitement was kind of on display at Wednesday's practice where Cam Ward was just going crazy, leading a 2-minute drill, a couple red zone touchdowns. It was his best day of practice so far at training camp, and he needed it after a little bit of a rough second week where the Titans really turned up the heat on him. But I think this is a reality. We've talked about this on air, off air. The Titans are not a prestige franchise in the NFL. And Miami is a prestige university, and you're right about that as a program. You know, the Titans are the opposite of that in the NFL. So I think that tampers things down. I also think the reality that the Titans probably aren't going to win a ton of games. You can't even, you know, it's not like the Bears and Caleb Williams' rookie year where you could at least talk yourself into, hey, maybe the Bears could be. You look at the Titans roster and it's hard to imagine them being, you know, on the bubble even. But I think that the Titans like going under the radar. They do their best work when they're an underdog. And I think a guy like Cam Ward, what I've liked the most, we haven't played games yet, P. He can't, you know, get his Hall of Fame jacket ready to go. But what I've liked the most is he has an obsessive competitiveness where he's showing up 5 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, beating everybody there, making his wide receivers come with him to watch tape that early. Brian Callahan's had to tell him, like, hey, it's a long season, rookie. Like, just back off just a little bit. And while you haven't played any games, you can't check the boxes on the field necessarily quite yet. Cam Ward is checking all of the boxes of what you want to see from your potential franchise quarterback, and that's all you can ask right now.
Yeah, maybe we need to revisit some of those Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders videos, and maybe we underanalyzed them at the time, given how the rest of the intervening weeks played 100%. Out here. Tyler, I know you mentioned Caleb Williams, and I'm so glad you did. There was this narrative, hey, he's set up really well for a number 1 overall pick, and then they won 5 games. I actually feel like the Titans have done a lot over the last 2 years. Really, like they tried to help Will Levis last year. And I wonder if you think some of the efforts made to help Will Levis and then some of the offensive line improvements, they're moving their former top 10 pick to his more natural position along the offensive line. Peter Skoronski, another year into all of this. Could the improvements that were made, maybe with false hope around Will Levis, could they help Cam Ward this year? Could they pay off in a different way this year?
Well, I 100% think if you look at a move that was made to help Cam Ward and and help Will Levis last year, signing Calvin Ridley, that's going to help Cam Ward quite a bit. Him and Cam Ward, Calvin Ridley have had a great connection throughout training camp, which is way different from what Levis was experiencing last summer, where they could not get on the same page. It was one of those things, you know, Cam Ward having a struggle practice and everybody goes, Will Levis lit it up in camp last year. That doesn't mean anything. Will Levis did not light it up in camp last year. If you talk to people who were there every day or people will cover it every day like I do, it's like that's not exactly what happened. So you look at the signing of Calvin Ridley, you look at the drafting of J.C. Latham, which the Titans did last year in theory to help Will Levis, and that's absolutely going to help Cam Ward this year. But also you bring in Dan Moore, which I don't think Dan Moore is anything to write home about, but he's probably better than Nicholas Petit-Ferrer or Jalen Duncan or these other options the Titans have been rolling out there, which are just truly despicable in my opinion. So I think they at least have a competent line in front of a young quarterback, and you can't say from Will Levis's perspective, the offensive line was not competent last year at right guard and at right tackle, and they're certainly much more of that now. So there are pieces from last year that were meant to help Will Levis that certainly will help Cam Ward even more this year in theory. But, I mean, Will Levis, we all saw what happened out there last year. It was as bad as it looked, and if Cam Ward is just not that bad, that's going to help the offensive line look better as well.
Do we know if Cam Ward puts mayo in his coffee?
He does not do that. Look, hey, you mentioned the videos of him and Shedeur Sanders from before, and I kind of pointed out, like, hey, man, I would much rather have Cam Ward based on these videos than Shedeur Sanders, and people got mad at me. They're joking. They're having fun, but I'm just saying, Sanders is out there like, hey, you want to be in my rap song? And Cam Ward's like, no, I'm an American football player. And I can't help it. I'm sorry. I think that matters. And I think it's proven out in front of us a little bit. Even if I want Shedeur to do well as well, I would much rather have Cam Ward. And I think with how things went in the draft and how things have gone since, Cam Ward clearly the guy you want leading your franchise.
You can stay up to date all year on the Tennessee Titans by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Titans on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, Matthew Stafford is dealing with a re-aggravated injury. Before we get to that, the Saints are starting to figure out their quarterback rotation. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first order. The Saints are beginning to figure out their QB rotation heading into preseason ball.
The fact that the quarterback rotation was the way that it was. So 2 days ago during the scrimmage, we saw Spencer Rattler get kind of first part of the rotation, first team reps. That remained for him going into today's practice on Tuesday following the day off. So they did not reset the rotation or continue the rotation. He remained the guy with the first team. Tyler Shough was with the second team. By the end of practice, they swapped for one split field drill where Shough was with the first team and Rattler was with the second team. Meanwhile, Jake Haener remained with the third team. That could tell us a couple things if we want to read into it. A bunch, we could say the quarterback battle is between two guys now, but what it probably really signals is kind of a little bit of the workload we should expect potentially for Sunday's preseason game, that maybe we see a quarter and a half for Rattler, a quarter and a half for Shough, and then maybe a quarter spent for Jake Haener. So that's just some of the ideas that I'm thinking of. But that was certainly a big takeaway for me, was seeing the way that they maintained that rotation, kept Rattler and Shough at first team, second team, and then kind of moved through.
Over on the diamond, the Yankees snapped a 5-game skid against the Rangers.
Yankees hold out as they barely get a victory 3-2 in Texas to close out this series and close out a devastating 1-5 road trip for the team. I'm Brian McKeon from Locked On Yankees, and even though the Yankees got a victory, it wasn't exactly the picture-perfect performance that you wanted. David Bednar was forced to get 5 outs, the longest save of his career, and the most pitches that he's thrown in his entire career. Not the proudest moment for the team, but they get a victory. They're heading back to the Bronx on a 1-5 road trip, and I'll tell you this, I would leave Aaron Boone in Texas if I absolutely could. We'll be talking about that and much more on Locked On Yankees. Catch us there.
And Jen Powell is set to become the first woman to officiate a Major League Baseball game when she works the Marlins-Braves series at Truist Park. Bases on Saturday, played on Sunday. It's the first time in 150 years that a woman will call a regular season MLB game. The 48-year-old Powell was an all-conference softball player at Hofstra and later rep Team USA in women's baseball. She began umpiring professionally in 2016 after attending Major League Baseball's Umpire Training Academy and spent nearly a decade working her way through the minors. She's already worked spring training games. Now she's officially making history. There's a saying in sports and in life that no one used to have back problems. Matthew Stafford currently dealing with a back problem that is so bad he's had to have an injection, an epidural. No, not that kind of epidural. Travis Rogers from Locked On Rams joins me now. And Travis, that would be hell of a story if he was having that kind of epidural for the reasons that we normally hear about. But it seems like at first it was, hey, no big deal. This is maintenance. He's 37 years old. That narrative seems to be changing lately. Do you think it's warranted?
Well, it's a little bit of that kind of epidural, right? If it's meant to reduce pain and
I guess
you get through life, I guess at least a little bit that. Yeah, I agree with you, Peter. I think that it's gone from, the way I always kind of look at these things is when somebody tells me, oh, it's no big deal, then, well, it's some deal or else he'd be practicing. That if you're not practicing, we're at least beyond it's not a big deal. It's some sort of deal. And I think that we've gone from some sort of deal to, hey, could this be problematic? Could this be something that keeps him from starting the season? Could this be something that is easily aggravated during the season? You've been hearing a lot of chatter about Jimmy Garoppolo in camp. And, that usually is because they're trying to get you to talk about the thing that you might have to be talking about to begin with. So, yeah, I think it's something. I don't think it can just be dismissed as, oh, he'll be fine. They do have a couple of new guys on offense that I'm sure Matthew Stafford would like to get a little more familiar with. So I think it's gone from, not a big deal to certainly something to at least maybe not worry about, whatever one stop short of worry about is. Be aware of.
Okay. Yeah. We'll find the right modifier in there somewhere. Yeah. This is also a player, Matthew Stafford, who, despite the fact that he hasn't missed a ton of games in his NFL career, has been hurt a lot in his NFL career. And it wasn't that long ago. We were, Sean McVay was talking about baseball injuries with his throwing elbow. And it was even less long ago that we were talking about, hey, maybe the Rams are not going to bring this guy back. So if you're a Rams fan, like, how do you make heads or tails of what to expect from Matthew Stafford as we sit here in early August?
Yeah, I don't know if you can. I really don't know if you can have any expectations at this point, other than you hope to see him against the Texans on September 7th is who they open with, and hope that he's ready to go. But I really do think that Rams fans should at least be considering the possibility of Jimmy Garoppolo playing not just a little bit, but maybe a lot in the early part of the season. And I think one of the things that the Rams did right, and this was last year, is they finally took the backup quarterback spot a little more seriously. And I think in large part is because of what you just said, Peter, which is this is an older player, and talking about Stafford, this is a player that, like you said, hasn't missed a ton of games, but has taken a pretty decent amount of punishment.
He will stand in there and fire, which means he will take hits.
Absolutely. And that's what makes him him. And that's what makes him, I think, a really good player and a great leader, is that he is tough, but all of those things, and he's not going, I think, lends you to believe it might be a little bit more serious than they're letting on. And, kind of going back to where I started, is that they went and signed Jimmy Garoppolo a year ago. They re-signed Jimmy Garoppolo this year as well, because I think they're at least preparing for the possibility of having to play a little bit, hopefully just a little bit, with their number 2 quarterback. And, as far as backup quarterbacks go, you could do a lot worse than Garoppolo.
You sure could. We've seen older quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers comes to mind. I think even Tom Brady at the end look like, I don't want to get hit. And they will not stand in there against pressure and fire. That has just never been in Matthew Stafford's DNA. If I got, some nice tequila and Sean McVay, do you think part of him would say, maybe we wish Matthew would play a little bit more like that at times, just to avoid some of this stuff?
I think so. I don't see the downside at all. I don't think that Matthew Stafford has to establish his credentials as an NFL tough guy. I don't think he has to establish the ability, I'm willing to do this for the greater good of the team. He's given it the office already, as they say. Let's move on to the next play. Let's move on to the next series. That, when you get later in the season, when you get into the playoffs, when you get into certain situations, you got to wait that extra half a second before you can deliver the football. Sure. But we don't need to do that, early in the year. You don't have to do that, maybe, hopefully, at all. But I don't know any coach who would like to see their quarterback take a pounding just to prove that they're, physically capable of taking one, and especially one with a bad back, and especially one that's a bad back and 37 years old. It's a pretty scary combination.
Stay up to date all year on the LA Rams by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Rams on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Bengals got to play Joe Burrow, or they'll endure the same fate they had a season ago. The Bengals started off last season 1-4, proving to be too big of a hole to climb out of. Locked On NFL host Tyler Rowland explains that Joe Burrow has to play in the preseason if the Bengals want to avoid a slow start this year.
Now, listen, the defense is usually ahead of the offense at this time in training camp for most teams. Not the case with the Bengals, and it shouldn't be the case. But yes, that Joe Burrow is going to be playing a lot more. Zach Taylor said several series in each preseason game. The Bengals have had slow starts the last few years, really slow starts, and then they've been trying to dig themselves out of a hole. I believe this 100% is Zach Taylor saying, you guys can't use that against me anymore. I'm going to play Joe. I'm going to play the starters quite a bit early in games. And if we get off to a slow start, you can't blame me for not playing the guys in the preseason. I've been calling for this for the Bengals for 2 years now. I think that they should be taking the preseason more serious. It sounds like they are, and I think the Bengals are a team that needs to start quick to erase the bad memories of the slow starts they've had in recent years.
I love Tyler. We had him on earlier in the show. He's dead wrong. Absolutely dead wrong. The problem the Bengals have had is Joe Burrow has been hurt. He's been less than 100%. And in fact, in a lot of cases, the last few years, unable to practice or unable to practice regularly. So the plan here is what exactly? To subject him to more risk of injury. And he's going to be playing not starters, which means guys who are going to have to play to the whistle or the shadow of that whistle, the echo of the whistle, who might be going a little harder than the starters if they get the opportunity to take down Joe Burrow. This is solving the wrong problem. The reason the Bengals have gotten off the slow starts the last few years is, number one, the health of Joe Burrow, and number two, the teams weren't good enough. They weren't good enough in the trenches on defense and in the trenches on offense. The offensive line is not fixed. The defensive line, they haven't paid Trey Hendrickson. So I don't know why they would expect that to be fixed. Maybe they should have addressed that part of it. Fixing the Joe Burrow piece, that's something, I guess, but this is not going to fix that because you want him healthy. And if you want him healthy, don't play him in the preseason. Don't subject him to extra. Yes, he could be hurt in practice. Yes, we've had guys hurt in the last year, multiple guys hurt in the car ride to practice or to the facility. You could get hurt anywhere, but you're adding risk by playing him in games that don't matter. Joe Burrow is not going to be any better throwing to T. Higgins or Jamar Chase with preseason games. It's not about that. And finally, Shohei Ohtani joined Elite Company on Wednesday, which feels a little weird to say because Shohei Ohtani is elite and is already in Elite Company in so many ways. But he became the third Japanese-born player with 1,000 major league hits. And of course, he did it in style. A 2-run bomb while also striking out 8 over 4 innings. He threw 6 pitches at 100 miles an hour or faster, and he handled his own run support. It's pretty clear at this point, Ohtani isn't a two-way player. Dude is just one of one. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, hey, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, how can the Texans build on last year's divisional round appearance? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.